How's it going, Jets fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Moran. Obviously, 53-man roster cuts occurring today. 4 p.m. is the deadline. The Jets have already made a ton, and even some pretty surprising ones, if I might add. You know, we had our 53-man projection yesterday, and a lot of these guys are definitely surprising, and I think that this is an interesting situation where the Jets probably are looking at the waiver wire themselves and saying, we can probably get better players or at least more impact, maybe better scheme fits. But, with that being said, let's start off our first one here, Jason Pinnock. This is an interesting one. Safety has been getting some reps with the first team. I think definitely would be brought back to the practice squad if he clears waivers. But if I'm looking at if I'm another team that has, some weakness in the secondary, Pinnock looks like a pretty solid depth piece to me, and he might not make it through waivers, to be honest with you. But, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Pinnock and how you do it today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Alex. To start here with Pinnock, definitely surprised. The guy who was getting first team reps throughout the spring when Lamarcus Joyner was recovering from injury. Pinnock, you talk about a guy who's 23 years old, a 5th round pick just last year, and was changing positions with a ton of both physical and athletic upside, height, weight, length, speed, explosiveness, quickness. This is a very, a young player with a lot of traits and, could continue to develop. And like you said, I think that's the reason why he probably does end up getting claimed. He was certainly a surprise. We're going to talk about the other safety as well. And really the trickle effect from there that both Ashton Davis and undrafted free agent rookie Tony Adams, both, initially here survived the, final 53. So definitely, some surprises there at the safety position. And, Pinnock was a guy I think we were both, optimistic about moving forward. And, certainly interesting here to see him get released was definitely a bit of a shock, I think, to most people and probably the headliner today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ashton Davis is still on the roster, right?
Yes, I think, honestly, the few things it boils down to with him, similar to Pinnock, the special teams, the athletic traits to begin with, I think are, very hard to give up on just with a recent 3rd round pick and a guy who, hasn't fully developed just based on the, lack of availability to this point. And like I was going to say there, the special teams value that Ashton Davis provides, I think really probably gave him, a bit of, more value just in terms of, the backups at the safety position for the Jets.
Interesting. Yeah, I do think that makes sense. Will Parks, obviously a veteran there. He also got cut in the same sentence there. So, you got Jason Pinnock and Will Parks. Both of them looked pretty solid during preseason. Surprising. But Ashton Davis, by the skin of his teeth, makes the roster once again. And I do not like him as a player, for the record, but I guess the special teams value there does stand out, especially, you got Jordan Whitehead, you got Lamarcus Joyner, Ashton Davis, and this is and who's playing strong safety now then?
Whitehead will start there.
So Whitehead will play at free and Joyner free safety. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. This is a Jets defense that is young and old at the same time. They have guys like Joyner back there. Then you have Sauce Gardner, who literally didn't even get a target toward him in preseason, so he looked really good. But the next one on the list is Tevin Coleman. This is one that we both had on the projected 53-man roster, and he's a veteran. I thought he probably was going to make it, and Ty Johnson makes the roster instead. And didn't Robert Saleh say he was going to be a 3rd down back or something like that? Or I heard something about that, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that was tweeted by a beat reporter. I don't necessarily put a ton into that. I think with Tevin Coleman, though, like you said, it was certainly a shock. I think the main thing, though, to keep in mind, and the Jets did this with Ryan Griffin last year, the tight end, was, an older veteran who's probably not, you're talking about the running back position and the premium on youth. And I don't know Coleman will necessarily be prioritized through waivers as much as these guys. And I think the main point, is that you probably want to try that. Supposedly they want to try and bring him back. They probably just want to do it with like a non-guaranteed salary for the year. I think his base salary consisted of like $250,000 fully guaranteed. So I think they want to try and get him back on, a lesser or possibly no guarantees amount if they can. And I think that's probably what you're looking at here. If, he's still available in a couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Coleman definitely has the veteran experience, has had some injury issues, but ultimately they want to go with some younger options, maybe someone that they feel more is reliable. Zonovan Knight, did he get cut as well?
No, him and Ty Johnson both are still there.
They both made it. Okay, so that could change.
I think to follow up with Coleman, what the Jets could do is, maybe they felt like Zonovan Knight was going to be, a potential waiver claim for a lot of teams. This kind of protects him in a sense to where if they bring Coleman back in a couple of days, maybe they, just move some parts there and put Knight on the practice squad without having to worry about going through waivers. I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
That definitely makes a lot of sense if they're trying to play that game. I know a lot of teams are kind of releasing veterans or people that, otherwise will be on the starting roster and just re-signing them back like a couple days later just to clear the spot and then, move a guy to the practice squad without the waiver claim period. But then you have Javelin Guidry, another player, interesting. What are your thoughts on Javelin Guidry and him being released today?
I think this was definitely from yesterday's set of moves, the biggest surprise to Jets fans, a guy who, wasn't fully 100% locked in, but I think just based on as an undrafted free agent, a guy with blazing, ridiculous speeds, a guy who showed some versatility both in the slot and on the outside. It was definitely a surprise, a guy who can help on special teams, obviously with that 4.2 speed he has. And, he's just turned 24 years old this month, plays, a valuable premium position and looked, slated once again to be the backup to Michael Carter, the second in the slot. And now Jet fans are wondering, is that going to be Brandon Echols, who they, kind of transition there to the inside as MC2's backup? Does that maybe become LaMarcus Joyner in a pinch, if they need somebody to fill in for Carter? But ultimately, you got to hope that Carter stays healthy and, continues to build like he showed in that Giant game the other day. And Guidry's a guy I would guess you never really know what the rest of the NFL feels because every team is getting rid of players that they like. There's a reason that these guys are obviously in camp with them to this point, but I would, love Guidry back on the practice squad, but I think at this point in time, it's really hard to speculate which way this can play out.
Yeah, there's a lot of cornerback depth on the market, going through waivers. So we'll see. Keandre Thomas, a guy from the Green Bay Packers, is also pretty solid. I think he gave up 8 yards on 8 targets this preseason with 12 tackles to boot. So, pretty solid 2 pass breakups, I think, or maybe 8 tackles and 2 pass breakups. So pretty solid player over there that maybe the Jets or Giants or another team may be intrigued by. But there are some cornerbacks that, could serve as serviceable depth that may be a little bit better. Javelin Guidry, like you said, really, really good athleticism. But maybe they're hoping that he just sneaks through waivers and, they were trying to protect some other guys, maybe like Zonovan Knight. Then you have Jonathan Marshall, defensive lineman. This is another one. The Jets obviously have had some issues in terms of stopping the run. Marshall made a pretty solid impression. What are your thoughts on him and his impact so far?
For sure. I mean, somehow we're looking at Nathan Shepard going into his 5th year with the Jets. I mean, it's really hard to figure out what exactly they see. I mean, I know that Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, Jeff Ulbrich, Aaron Wycott, they all feel so great about Nathan Shepard, but it's another one of those situations where we just haven't seen it in a live game. And in this preseason, I think you saw both Tanzel Smart and Marshall really make some splash plays. And again, just the, favoritism towards Shepard here, I guess, plays out. And Marshall was, similar to Pinnock. I mean, a day 3 pick in 2021 with loads of athletic upside through the roof. And, it was starting to show some glimpses this preseason, along with a guy like a Jamie Sherwood, who obviously is on the roster, but you were starting to see some guys show some progress. And, hopefully they can get Marshall back. I mean, that's a tough one with the just athletic traits that, he's gifted with, to really see him go at such an early point. But, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, injuries do happen. These guys come back. They go all over the place. Definitely an interesting kind of period. But the next one, Shawn Phillips, another one, and Chuma Edoga too. Like Chuma Edoga, that was a surprise. The Jets tried to trade him. The report that the Dallas Cowboys were trying to acquire him probably was true, but I think that they were probably like, we could probably just claim him off waivers, and maybe take a shot there. And, clearly I think this one is surprising. They obviously think Max Mitchell is good enough to be that kind of swing tackle for now. Did Connor McDermott make it, or is he gone?
It's interesting because he's currently injured. So I don't know if he's going to be on the initial 53 or if they can designate him to an injured list. That still remains to be seen here.
Interesting. Okay. So we'll see how they kind of go with that, but Chuma Edoga gone now. I imagine they're going to try and claim somebody to help at offensive tackle.
100%. It seemed like Chuma was really locked in as that swing tackle, the third player there behind George Fant and Dwayne Brown. But, they obviously just let him go here recently. And there was some trade speculation yesterday from Aaron Wilson. I want to say it was a Pro Football Network. And, I guess nothing ended up coming to fruition. Like you said, I mean, there was always that outside chance the Jets were going to just cut Edoga. And obviously in this case, it played out like that. I think offensive tackle, defensive tackle, safety are really the 3 positions to keep an eye on here through waivers from other teams for the Jets to really, add. I mean, those are a couple of, the backup tackle, not like a starter by any means, but like you said, you want to keep Max Mitchell, and his development as, fair to him as you possibly can.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. We'll see what they do there. Offensive tackle definitely could use a bit more depth. Most teams would probably agree with that. It's really hard to find good offensive linemen these days. But any other guys that you thought, maybe was interesting that they got released? I know this is kind of the primary ones, but I imagine probably a couple more. Bradley.
Yeah, Shawn Phillips, Isaiah Dunn, Bradley and there were definitely a couple, and I think Calvin Jackson, and supposedly they're going to try and get him back on the practice squad. That's what multiple reports have indicated. But I think the good thing that you can take from it is that, I saw something today. It was from like 2 years ago. The Jets, like top four receivers were guys that were like undrafted free agents, and they had a guy who was with the team for a day. So like this team is certainly better under Joe Douglas, and I think that's why you're seeing, even some fans voicing frustration with guys like Guidry and Pinnock, Parks, Tevin Coleman, those guys. And it speaks volumes just to the improved depth, and that, this team, while it's not perfect and, we're not viewing them currently as like a Super Bowl contender, but they're certainly making strides, and, continue to expect. Joe Douglas has done some things through waivers, whether it's John Franklin Myers, Braxton Berrios, Quincy Williams. I mean, he's definitely, added in this, avenue in the past and gotten some good talent. So I definitely would keep an eye on a couple of things. Obviously, a Denzel Mims trade in the next 24 to 48 hours could potentially shake up some things. And I think those three positions, like I said, third tackle, defensive tackle, safety, definitely a couple positions to keep a close eye on. And like I said, I think Tony Adams was the one surprise to really see make it. I guess you could throw Ty Johnson into that mix as well. But, this is just the initial, 53. There's always, some tinkering that teams make. And, we'll see what JD continues to do here.
Absolutely. And yeah, this is not a finished product. This team will definitely make some changes over the next couple of days, and definitely through the waiver wire. So we'll see how this kind of shakes out, especially some of the depth positions here. But we'd love to hear your perspectives on some of these players, my friends. In the YouTube comments, there are some interesting guys that the Jets decided to move on from that, we don't necessarily agree with. And I thought Pinnock was one. A lot of people were very surprised by Coleman too, and how they're going to use Ty Johnson, Will Parks, and Chuma Doga. That was definitely one that caught me off guard, and Marshall as well. So love to hear your thoughts on some of these guys. Just kind of your overall perspective on maybe guys that you think they should have kept around, or some options on the waiver wire that maybe they should bring in to help support this team. Always curious to hear your perspectives and opinions. But as always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe below on the YouTube channel. Appreciate all the love, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets episode.